So, are we having fun yet? Just asking for a friend. Man, this is, periodically when you're a Knicks fan, because this town is always going to be, well, something really special has to happen for this town not to be a football town or a baseball town. Yankees, Giants, always going to be the top two teams, and I think other than late '60s, early '70s. Knicks are always somewhere lower there. So when like something starts developing where you can tell the public consciousness outside of just people who do things like watch me, after games and are on Knicks Twitter and whatever else, when that starts to rise up and be like, oh, wait a minute, what's going on with the Knicks? All the casuals who kind of maybe dip in and out every couple of years, oh, if they're good, I'll watch this and that. It feels like we are entering one of those stages, which is an interesting feeling, because for so many fans, the trade that went down, I mean, it seems like a million years ago already, but it was whatever it was just 10 days ago. That represented the end of something good, the end of an era, and some, a sad moment, as it were. But this Knicks team, and look, I want to be, we're gonna have a lot of fun tonight, and I'm sure the super chats are gonna be blazing. So I'm going to let me get overly exuberant. I'm gonna, start off by okay, Benji just had a great tweet. Knicks have allowed, since the OG Anunoby trade, 97.5 points a game, which is insane in 2023. They have played the 5th, 19th, 24th, 25th, and then tonight the 28th ranked offenses in the league. So not exactly a murderer's row. That being said, there is, again, something special happening here. This trade completed them in a way that we could look back 10 years from now, 5 years from now, we could look back in 6 months and be like, yeah, the Knicks lost they, if you were doing a talent thing, like a balance sheet of talent going out and coming in, there's a very distinct possibility that the Knicks were going to look back and be like, oh yeah, the Knicks lost the trade. And it doesn't matter in the slightest. And it didn't matter, I think, to a lot of us who were in great favor of the trade the day it happened. And now that we're seeing the proof in the pudding, and now that we're seeing the impact that, and I don't want to make it about the guys that left, because I don't want to say anything negative about the guys that left, but it is impossible. It's impossible to watch this team play now at both ends of the floor and not universally feel like, oh, okay, now I get it. Now I see the vision. Now I see why it made so much sense to do this. Why it not only, as everybody has said, on the defensive end, it slots everybody else in. More than that, though, and DJ and Benji talked about this a little bit last night. OG, and this is a team that has, for as much as they have had a million guards to start the year, this is a team since Leon Rose and Tom Thibodeau took over, has kind of gone all in on size. I mean, they went with constant size at the 5. They went with Julius Randle, who's as big as any 4 out there. And they've always brought in other guys that could do rebound their position well, Quickly and DiVincenzo, small guards rebound their position well. So this whole going all in on size thing is not new. But you look at now Anunoby out there, and forget slotting everybody into their proper positions on the defensive end. This team is just fucking massive. Imagine trying to score on this team. I mean, when DiVincenzo's out there, you got a ball hawk. Doing what he's doing, opening freaking play of the game, gets a pick 6. And then when you got Hart out there at the 2, well, that's a whole different animal. And then Deuce McBride, who I got to tell you, man, yeah, OG's the leading story coming out of this game. He's obviously the leading thing to talk about right now. But, man, Deuce McBride, after coming out in the 2 games after the trade, looking like a guy who was totally not even remotely ready for prime time, Some who tweeted it out, I think it was Fred Katz, tweeted out in the middle of this game. Something happened that night in Philly because this is a different player right now. There's a player playing with confidence. There's a player hunting step backs, like trying to take guys off the dribble. Like you could tell when a player confidently steps into a shot. And it shouldn't be surprised that it took a couple of games for a guy who's been riding the bench all year to get comfortable. And yes, it absolutely does change the conversation about what this team does and does not need. I mean, Malcolm Brogdon, I spent, I don't know, way too many words writing about him today for the newsletter. How'd he look tonight? And I understand he's kind of probably mailing it in now because he's been relegated to the bench behind a player who he is superior than. He probably doesn't love that. But no, keep it on the Knicks. Like, Deuce, different player. If he's going to be this version of the offensive player, you throw him out there on the defensive end alongside some of these other guys. One of the many things I love that Tibbs did tonight was he left. I think this is the most extended stretch he's done this, other than obviously when all the starters are out there. Left OG Anunoby and Julius Randle out there together when Brunson was not on the court, with Deuce out there. And I forget if Hart or Grimes was in the game. One of them was in the game. But either way, just you're overwhelming teams. And again, I read you the offensive rankings of the teams they've played, so I don't want to make it out like this is going to be the number one defense in the league for the rest of the year. It's not. And boy, are they going to face a nice challenge in a couple nights playing the Mavs, although the Mavs are struggling right now against a Ja Morant-less Memphis Grizzlies team at home, no less. But that's going to be a big challenge, and I'll be curious to see how they do facing a genuine offensive force. I know the Mavs don't rank at the top of the league in terms of offense, but they're, what the Mavs could do on offense. Anyway, so that remains to be seen, but great, all so far so great. And then on offense, offense hasn't been this team's problem for a year and a half, so I don't want to make it out to be like they reinvented the wheel here, but man, the thing that was unmistakable and why I think so many people, even after they ranked third in offense last year, and I before I say what I'm about to say, I should again, if I have not emphasized it, I did not emphasize it yet. I want to emphasize it now. They played the Blazers tonight, and the Blazers are not a good basketball team. Not only are they the 28th ranked offense in the league, but actually defensively they're better, quite a bit better than that. But they're not a good team. This is a team that if you step on them early, and at the same time, it's not like this team over the last year and a half has been above playing down to the competition at times. And so I really think the defense is what put Portland down from the outset. And that was important. On the offensive end, getting back to what I was saying, they had to work so hard for their points, even as the third-ranked offense in the league last year. And yeah, they'd occasionally go through stretches, but whether it was, okay, Brunson create, Randle create, RJ create, quickly create, and you watch them out there in the first half, and really it was the first 18 minutes of the game, because after the first 18 minutes of the game, the Knicks kind of went on autopilot. It's hard for me to blame them. It's amazing. I've never seen a game before in my life where a team went 8.5 minutes of not scoring at all, not scoring a field goal. Not scoring a field goal. They scored a bunch of free throws, but not making a field goal at all. And then that 8.5 minute stretch was inside of the first, the first 32, 33 minutes of the game, and they were up by almost 40. Never seen that before. But again, that's how good their offense looked when it was humming. And the Blazers are they're the 19th ranked defense in the league. So not awful. And the Knicks were just, they look like the Harlem freaking Globetrotters out there playing the Washington Generals during some of those first half possessions. 15 assists on their first 20 made field goals. The Knicks, 15 assists on their first 20 made field goals. And I don't want to say it came easy to them, but it sure as hell looked a lot less strenuous than so many of those possessions. They were up by 22 at the half, and Jalen Brunson and Julius Randle combined for 5 field goals. If that's not a good sign, I don't know what is. And again, it's the OG effect. He's automatic from the corners, and he's great, especially great tonight from the corners, but he's always going to be good from the corners. And just, again, another big guy. I think the size matters on offense as well, because you can't put a little guard on him. That's for shit sure. And like moving without the ball, everybody's moving without the ball, making the right pass. Everybody right now on this team, when the game matters, making the right play without fail. And yeah, I think that has to do a little bit with the fact that like you have two guys leaving who one is playing for a new contract this year, did not get his money over the summer. And like we've seen the ball stick with quickly a little bit. We've seen, and again, DJ and Benji, I think one of them mentioned it on the show last night. Like there were a lot of possessions where like, okay, quickly, dribble the ball 10, 15 seconds and then go into whatever he's going to go into. And there'll still be some of that. There'll still be a ton of ISO possessions featuring Brunson and Randle in particular, especially when they get in games against these really locked-in defenses. Their final hurdle as an offense will be, can they continue this play style against the best defenses? That's the final hurdle. And that's, if you're dreaming big dreams about like, oh, can this team contend? That's what you want to look for. Defensively, I actually have very few worries. Offensively, that's what you want to look for, but they'll have to play some elite defensive competition for us to see that. Back to the here and now. So you lost quickly, and then RJ, I mean, we've all had the same comments about RJ kind of the occasional tunnel vision that, and then also what does it do to an offense when you have a guy out there who maybe not everybody on the floor has complete and total confidence that he is gonna hit an open shot and make the right play. So, and that's not RJ's fault either, because RJ, again, is a guy who sees himself a certain way, has always seen himself as a certain way, and was trying to fit in as the third cog on this offense, and quickly is trying to fit in as the fourth cog on this offense. That's not easy. And they're getting a chance to spread their wings now in Toronto, and I bet you they're going to both, they already have, and they'll continue to look a lot better. Which is saying a lot quickly because you look pretty freaking awesome here. So it just works. Everything's slotting in right now. Again, is Deuce the long-term answer at the backup point guard position? Is Precious Jew had a nice game tonight. Is he the long-term answer at the, at the backup center position? I don't know if either of those things are true, but for right now, though, and again, I don't want to get ahead of myself, but I'm going to anyway. Big Dallas game coming up on Thursday. We'll see what happens. They're down by 14, 9 minutes left in the third quarter right now. Orlando lost tonight. They actually got smoked by Minnesota. I was watching some of that game. Paolo's making the All-Star team. He's, I don't know about a lot, but he's looking really good. But they lost. We won. So we're now we emerged from that 5-team pack that we're all tied at 21-15 to go to 22-15. 2 games behind Philly. And if you want to look up, I don't know how serious this Dame injury is. 3 games behind Milwaukee. Me personally, I'm still of the mindset, just be one of the top 5 by the end of the season. Go into the playoffs no worse than the 5 seed. If you want to dream some dreams, by all means. I did not mean for that to rhyme. If you want to think big, think bigger than I am. I am conservative by nature. But man, 2 games back of Philly. You're playing a bunch more, so tiebreaker doesn't mean much right now. But yeah, I'm. And the last thing I'll say, like, you look at the schedule ahead. Like, look, none of these games are going to be gimmies. Well, they do play Washington. Maybe other than that, none of these games are going to be gimmies. But if you play like this, and you bring this level of just everything they're doing on the floor to every game, the Knicks have a chance to be really trying not to get ahead of myself here. Knicks have a chance to be really good. And I think at the very least, if there are other teams around the league looking at how this trade has impacted the Knicks, I don't know that I would say that Boston or even honestly Milwaukee or Philly, any of those, are they like all of a sudden like, oh my God, I hope we have to avoid the Knicks in the playoffs. I hope we don't play the Knicks in the playoffs. I don't know that we're there yet. What would frighten the ever-living shit out of me if I was one of those teams, maybe not Boston, because Boston's just, I don't think they fear anybody. But I even them, like, is the fact that the Knicks still have another trade to make without dipping into any of their unprotected picks. And I say that with some trepidation because I don't know that the perfect trade is going to be there. Like, again, I wrote about Brogdon today. Is Brogdon the perfect trade for this team to make? I don't know. And we could talk about that if you guys want. But for me, I'm just happy seeing this team playing like this. This is as good a basketball as I've seen the Knicks play. Are they playing as well as they played at any time last season? Might be. They might be. Could be. On that note, if you know, you know. We're going to dive right in because I'm sure people are going to have stuff that they want to talk about. So APJP on the ones and twos. Shout out to him. Shout out to everybody watching live. Andrew Claudio just told me we have some like 1,200 people watching live. That's pretty cool. And here we go. Let's get into it. Start off with Marshmallow. I feel like we haven't heard from Marshmallow in a while, but it's great to hear from you. Is it just me, or should here we go. There we go. See, it always happens. Someone reads my mind before, like, I don't even know it. Should other teams start worrying about getting embarrassed? I can't remember the Knicks looking this good 5 games in a row. I don't know. I mean, look, so who got embarrassed? Philly definitely got embarrassed. And then the Wizards and the Blazers. So, like, their upcoming schedule, again, other than Washington, I think the Knicks got lucky tonight. Again, you go 8.5 minutes without scoring a field goal and to still be up 20 or whatever they were, 22 after that. You get a little fortunate with your opposition. But I think teams, at the very least, whether you're a good team, a bad team, a team in the middle, you have to bring your absolute A game to play with this Knicks team. And if you like, there are teams out there that they bring their A game, they're going to beat the Knicks because they still have more talent. And again, the depth piece did not show itself tonight. It could show itself in other nights against the really, really best defensive teams or the really, really best offensive teams that could just run you off the floor if they get going. But that's the part for me. I'm not looking at it as like other teams have to be worried about getting embarrassed. I'm more looking at it like, is this defense, because that was the great part for me about the We Here team, is with maybe a couple of exceptions, they were in every game because of their defense, because they put out a defensive product on the floor every night. And even when there were games where they could not hit the far side of a barn, and God knows there were quite a few of those games. And then when they got Derrick Rose, it was like, boom, there's just enough juice. And they went 16-4. Well, now you already had the offensive component. And now you've got the defensive component. The offense got arguably better and defensively. So that's the thing that I'm most excited about, is maybe not that we're going to like a threat to blow out every team that we play, but that the Knicks are going to continue to be in every game because their defense is going to keep them in every game. Like OG, I think, gives you that. When you put an OG Anunoby into a Tibbs defensive infrastructure, I mean, it's a game changer. Thanks, Marshmallow. Appreciate you starting us off. Dom Cappuccini, my main man, Dom. How are you, my friend? And the band played on. Well said. Another statement game by Deuce to the front office. You got to love it. Yeah, for sure. Descending contract. They made a bet. I kind of questioned the bet. I'm looking forward to talking to Fred Katz tomorrow, because he, on his podcast, was like, raise an eyebrow or two. We'll talk about that. Deuce is making them look really smart. And look, they've seen him behind the scenes for years. So not surprised that they've bet seemingly right so far. Also, you got to love Grimes getting into a rhythm again. The bench is getting teeth again. So, yeah, I guess Grimes is, his mom and his brother. I know they went to the Ranger game last night because his brother, I hope I'm not getting this wrong, plays for the Canucks. And I guess his mom was there tonight. Again, you talk about another guy playing with confidence. And I mean, he was, I'm going to look up his box score number right now. And he was in for a lot of garbage time. And he put up some shots in garbage time. I think mostly misses, but he had one final make. Yeah, Grimes, 17 points, on 11 shots, 4-9 from deep, 5 of 11 from the field. But he put up 11 shots in 21 minutes. That's I mean, even with garbage time, you don't do that unless you're shooting it with confidence and feeling comfortable. And it was said at the time, it should be said again, and it should be said repeatedly moving forward. This trade was as much about unlocking Grimes and to a lesser extent Deuce as it was getting OG Anunoby. And he was told that he was going to have a real opportunity to be a bigger part of the offense and be a bigger part of the team after the trade. And he is, So here we are. Great stuff. Thanks, Tom. Kevin Danishevsky. Boring, efficient. Gotta love how my boy Quentin Grimes is getting more opportunities. Passing, good. OG, awesome. Now I get to watch former Knicks in the late game. Yes. So we're 15 minutes away from tip-off of, I believe, Lakers Raptors. So I'll try to watch as much of that as I can. And again, shout out RJ. Awesome game. Made his threes the other night against who did they kick the shit out of? Oh, that's right. The artist that used to be known as the Golden State Warriors. Quickly passing really good in that game. Like they're both looking good. So yeah, it'll be fun to watch them tonight. It's and the usage thing. So like usage is the percent of possessions you use up when you're on the court. So it doesn't, like, if you look at all the usage rates on a team, it doesn't add up to 100 because guys obviously are playing different minutes. But you're still taking a 25 usage guy or 26, 27 usage guy in RJ and a 20, I don't know what he was at the time of the trade, 22, 23, 24, something like that in quickly, and sending them out. And like OG, like tonight, his usage was, I'm sure it was high because he really had it going. But even tonight where he like dominated, dude only took 12 shots, I mean, he took fewer shots than Deuce McBride. Like, that's the funniest part, is like perhaps even more than Grimes. The guy that's been sopping up the usage, and I saw someone had a tweet the other day about the usage rates, and I apologize. I would credit the person if I knew. The usage rates since the trade, and I think Deuce was like way up there, and he'll be even higher now. But yeah, Grimes is going to get, like, there's a big slice of the pie that's available. Big slice of the pie. So good stuff from both of those guys. I'm glad people are making it about Deuce and Grimes. Thanks, Kev. Dom Cappuccini with another one. Is Deuce's 3-ball for real? Well, I mean, look. He is, in this game, from 3, he was 4 of 7. Against, sorry, I'm getting it right now. He hit half of his threes against Jesus Christ, this is really pretty insane. So, you know what, man? So 4 of 7 tonight, 1 of 2 against Washington, obviously 4 of 6 against Philly in the explosion, and then 1 of 2 against the Bulls. And I forget that he had a 3 in that Bulls game. So 50%, 66%, 50%, 57%. I mean, that dog would seem to hunt. But honestly, you even look at it before that, like, he didn't get a lot of playing time, but he was kind of shooting it well even before that. I don't know. I mean, his form, to me, Benji and DJ should talk about his form far more than I should. He shooting 47% on the year on limited attempts. I want to see more. How about that? I want to see more. Please. And if the 3 becomes something that like teams have to respect, that's a game changer. It's a game changer because he's not, I mean, look, he's not Caruso because no one's Caruso, but like if there's anyone in the league that's his size or about his size that can guard up a position and can stay on the floor, can like share the floor with a nominal point guard that should be guarding like the other team's least imposing offensive player. If there's a guy at his size that could stay on the floor and play alongside one of those guys, it's Deuce. So why am I going through that? It's the notion that, like, okay, let's say they do feel the need to make a trade to get a little bit more offensive juice. Maybe Deuce stays as part of the rotation, man. I mean, I don't see a 10-man rotation being a thing. Crazier things have happened. Like, depending on who that player is, do we see a little bit more Randle at the 5? Like, there was some more switching that happened tonight on defense. Like, when you have an OG Anunoby on your team and a Josh Hart on your team and a Deuce McBride on your team, like, you have a lot of fun on defense. So all of this stuff comes together. Just being able to make shots as a role player, it just changes every conversation you have about a guy. If you're a role player and you're a perimeter player in the league, either you could hit threes or you can't. And so Deuce needs to keep hitting threes. It's big. It's massive. Thanks, Tom. Dan Hidalgo, Jalen Brunson's ability to draw charges really helps his defense. Yeah, I mean, but here's the other thing. Like, yes, he drew another charge tonight. I feel like, is this the third straight game he's drawn a charge? I feel like I've been jotting down that he's drawn a lot of charges of late. I'll go ahead and check and see if he's back leading the league. He was up there with Timmy. More than that, like, yeah, it does improve his defense. I'm like, that's important. And I think more even than like it directly improving his defense, it's more a matter of uplifting team spirit. Like when guys see your best player like throwing his body around like that, like how could you not help but be inspired? The thing that is a bigger deal to me is like, yeah, Brunson's even with the charges still going to be a minus defender, but it stands out so much less. Now, look, will there be teams that are going to hunt him? Yeah, there's teams that are going to be hunted, but again, Knicks added length. They added size. It's going to be easier to counteract those teams that do mismatch hunt aggressively in the playoffs, and we'll see, which teams do that and how they succeed with that. Thanks, Dan. Ben Kim Garvey, what's going on, Ben? One of our very best, one of our patrons as well. Tonight, Deuce was great, and Brogdon was a deuce. I have nothing to add on that. That is absolutely true. Thanks, Ben. Just like your halftime. I have nothing to add. I'm just going to read what you wrote. I'm looking for the Chargers thing right now. Yeah, Brunson's leading the league in Chargers drawn with 22. So actually after tonight, it might be 23. Timmy has 20. Okay. Yuri Pereira. Nice win. This team is good, John. Finally. Hashtag. I should probably know what this refers to. G-Bras? Someone let me know because I don't know. But sure. Yeah, they're good. They're a really good basketball team. I think for me, since before the season started, I've kind of been on this kick of parity. It's a league full of parity with a few teams at the top that deserve to be kind of in their own tier. Well, now you kind of look around and you're like, all right, well, the Nuggets will continue. I'll continue to give them the benefit of the doubt. The defending champions, they're not giving a shit this regular season. Fine. Boston, own tier, fine. And then after that, I mean, yeah, you got Milwaukee, Philly, and let's say Minnesota. And OKC, sorry. Well, those four, right? After Denver and Boston. Are the Knicks in with that group yet? Got to see a little bit more. If they're not there, they are knocking on the door hard. And they're for me, top of the next tier. With a tip of the cap to the Clippers. We always forget about the Clippers because they're the Clippers and they kind of, they have James Harden now and they're seen as a laughingstock or perpetually. I mean, the Clippers have been absolutely balling since the Harden trade. Not since the Harden trades. They integrated Harden properly after the first 5 or 6 games. So like us, the Clippers, I mean, Miami obviously deserves to be in the conversation. They've earned that right after what they've done the last several years in the playoffs. But can they get their guys just don't play enough for me to really put them in that conversation. But yeah, so you're talking what? 7th, 6th, 7th, 8th best team in the league? That's pretty good. I'll take that. Thanks, Yuri. Jess, what's going on, Jessica? How are you? Great night from McBuckets. Oh, man, is he taking the nickname? I mean, Dougie's always going to have the McBuckets. Because I loved the Dougie experience here in New York. Didn't last long enough, unfortunately. But Deuce might take it. Love the season, Julius, so much. iHeart seems unstoppable. iHeart didn't have to do anything tonight. It was great. OG makes everyone better. Nice to be on this side of a blowout. It was disconcerting. I think it was disconcerting for the Knicks. I think it is disconcerting for the Knicks to be this up this much in a game. It's really wild, and they've had to do it now for a few times in a row. The season Julius is having, it's funny. I'm fairly certain his stats for this game are probably not great. I'll look them up right now. I know he didn't shoot it well in the first half. He finished this game, 7 of 17 for 20 points. But here's the thing: 8 assists, 2 turnovers, and then 7 rebounds for good measure. So when Julius Randle has 8 assists and Jalen Brunson has 7 assists, those guys combined for 15 assists in the same game. That to me is a sign of an extraordinarily healthy New York offense, because your main cogs are not just relying on getting tough buckets to help your team. And this is not to say that Julius Randle and Jalen Brunson have been ball hoggy or have not passed the ball willingly in the past, but there is something else going on about this team right now in terms of how they are moving the ball. And I know Julius got into a stretch there at the end of the second quarter and the beginning of the third quarter where he got, he was missed a couple shots he usually makes and was kind of maybe getting in his own head, and it wasn't great. But like, look, they knew who they were playing. They knew what the outcome of this game was going to be. So I can't even get on him or anybody for that. I love what we're seeing from Randle. This is the best version of him. Fred Katz wrote about it earlier this week. Spot on article. I've read about it this season. It's really, it's cool to see, and it gets you really excited about what lies ahead, because you just hope he can keep it up in the playoffs, as teams will, and boy will they ever, just throw the kitchen sink at him to try to get him off his game. And we'll see what happens. Thanks, Jessica. Connor, with the way they're playing and the January schedule, the Knicks should be looking good heading into February. Yeah, I mean, I'll run through it right now since you brought it up. I'm not going to do like a wins-losses thing. I'm just going to say schedule. So this road trip is the last time they're going to, after this road trip, after they get back from this road trip, they will have 4 weeks where they leave the state of New York one time, and it's to go to Charlotte, which is like arguably quicker to drive to than fly to. So after Dallas and Memphis road trip, home Orlando, home Houston, home Washington, home Toronto. That'll obviously be emotional. At Brooklyn, home Denver, home Miami. That's home Denver, home Miami. That's tough. Then you make your little trip to Charlotte, and then this takes you through February 20th, or excuse me, February 10th. All home. Utah, Indiana, Lakers, Memphis, Dallas, Indiana. So again, like, not a lot of walkovers in that whole stretch that I just read. You want to say Charlotte, but you're on the road, and they can be spunky at times. I know their net rating is awful. Brooklyn may be imploding before our eyes. We'll see. And then Washington. Like, those are the only, like, walkover games against really bad or, like, trending bad teams. Like, all these other games are games that, like you better play well, otherwise you're going to lose. So that's why I don't want to, like, go crazy and, like, be like, oh, the Knicks are going to go, 13-3 in this track. Look, I don't know, maybe, but I'm still trying to be a little bit judicious with my excitement. How about that? Thank you, Connor. Appreciate you, man. Jack City, great name. OG Oh My 43. He seems to be having fun, right? Like, I don't know. Is this like what he envisioned? Is this the, like when he said bigger role? I just think for him, there's a big difference between being the third guy or like third-ish guy on Toronto on a team that, like, yeah, I know they're Canada's team, but like whatever. and then being the third guy on a New York Knicks team that's winning. Like, I know I don't know how many people read it, but like Charles Oakley got a book published because he was the third guy on the Knicks for a decade. Now, obviously, that team did a lot of winning, but like that's like if OG's here for a long time and the Knicks are winning for a long time, and he is like the defensive force stopper guy and makes some all defense teams, like that dude, he's going to be like, then you cement your place in NBA history, which is like, I'm again talking about getting ahead of myself. The guy's played 5 games here, but that's what's on the table. It truly is what's on the table because the team is primed to be successful, and he's really good, and he fits really well, and they're going to pay him, and they're going to make him happy. So, all good things. Sam Garcia, this effing team, John. Yeah, this effing team is right. It's fun. I'm excited for Thursday night. I know. Again, I'm looking up. The Mavs are they're down 18 towards the end of the third quarter. They have Luka and Kyrie, and I didn't even realize not only is Morant not playing in this game, but Jaren Jackson Jr. apparently is not playing in the game either. And it's weird because like this Dallas team has been pretty good all year. Like they can't defend anybody, but they've still been good. And I don't know. I'm excited for Thursday night. Thanks, Sam. It's Roses. Hey, it's Roses. As a non-toxic real Knicks fan who didn't feel the need to talk shit about a guy who helped turn this franchise around, it's great to see both OG and RG succeed on their respective teams. Amen. Amen. I obviously did get frustrated, and I've already said my piece about that. Ill-timed and, poorly chosen words. It's great to see them doing what they're doing. I wish them nothing but the best. Those guys, 2 class acts, represented the franchise well, especially RJ. I thought RJ's comments today in the it was an Anscape piece by Mark J. Spears, I believe, about how, like, he called it like it is. Knicks were a losing franchise when he came here, and he was part of the turnaround. So nothing but love for them moving forward. Hope they get all the success in the world. Hope IQ gets paid. I trust he will get paid a lot of money. That's important to him. And, and RJ, I hope he can finally get like the sort of role that I think he always desired here, but a role that was maybe not conducive to winning, given his particular skill set on this roster and surrounded maybe by some of the other, pieces that were here. So good job by them. And good job by you. Thank you for the contribution. Joseph Brennan. Shout out Leon. It didn't get said enough. This team was in a dark place. I like this comment already. Just one current rotation player was inherited, Julius Randle. Everyone else he's brought in, and there's still ammo left. Exciting times. Man, Joseph, I love it. I truly do love an excuse to go down memory lane a little bit. So Randle was here and was looked at as a consolation prize. And look, yes, he inherited Randle, but there were a lot of people, including this guy, who wondered at the time and have wondered many times since whether the move was to trade Randle when he was 10, 15, 20, 30 games into that All-NBA campaign, the first one, and pivot into a tank, get whatever you could from Randle, and so on and so forth. And I was dead wrong about that. And there's a lot of reasons I was wrong about that. Most of them having to do with Randle, but also again, if you need proof that tanking is not the be all end all strategy in the league, just turn on the Pistons game. Could have turned on the game tonight. They were up by 20 and ended up losing by 20. So yeah, so Randle, they didn't trade Randle. Hardenstein maneuvered to sign him, and we always will refer back to that Jalen Williams trade. And Jalen Williams, he's going to be in the All-Star conversation this year. They missed out on a guy. They would not have had the money to sign Hardenstein, to say nothing about that. It would have been dicey to sign Brunson if you had kept the pick that you could have drafted Jalen Williams with. But still, sometimes things work out for a reason. Not sitting here saying the team wouldn't be better off with J-Dub, but hey, you went and got your version of J-Dub. in OG Anunoby. And how did you get him? You traded quickly in RJ. You inherited RJ. You kept him. You re-signed him to a good contract, or a contract that was at least seen as like movable. Toronto was obviously okay with it. And so you used your assets to get the guy that you didn't get because you didn't make the draft pick, and to get Hartenstein, who was instrumental to your team. Signed Brunson as a free agent. So 2 very notable free agent signings. Dante DiVincenzo, free agent signing. That's 3 big free agent signings. And then you look at the bench. Grimes, really nice draft pick at that spot. Josh Hart, fantastic trade for what you gave up in terms of how he fits in with your team. And then Achua, part of the trade. And then Deuce McBride. Again, good solid draft pick. So, and I should say Mitch. You know, Mitch is hurt right now. He's still a part of the team, big part of the team, big part of the success, big part of why they're here. They inherited Mitch as well. But again, they had opportunities to move Mitch. Again, 2 trade deadlines ago. I was wondering at the time, should they have moved him? Like, Detroit was allegedly interested because Detroit wants to trade for every center who ever played basketball. And they didn't. They kept on to him. They held on to him because they valued him. They valued what he brought, and they were smart to do that as well. So tons of smart stuff from them. Not perfect. Never going to be perfect. No GM in the league is perfect. You know, the Obi pick, Fournier signing, Kemba experiment. You know, some of the other stuff, which is like less consequential, but like, you know, you could praise him for Burks. You could praise him for the Rose trade, the first Burks signing. You know, the original Noel contract was important. Like, all this stuff that they've done along the way helped to legitimize them. And they were the most illegitimate professional sports franchise in the world when these guys came and took over. So that's why, like, you really do have to praise them. And I love nothing more than going off on a tangent, giving some praise to Leon Rose, a guy who I've criticized over the years at times, and he has absolutely showed everybody. Thanks, Joseph. Jack City, first time here. Oh, welcome. I mean, you know, we kind of just talk about the game because it's a good game to talk about. Thanks, Jack. Hush Zoo, OG saved my life. When it's dark, OG is my light. You might have saved the Knicks' life. Seriously. Hush Zoo, I heart all defense convo possibility. Pay him. It's not about paying him necessarily. There's a limit to what they can give him. That's the tough part. They're not going to be able to go over a certain amount because they're not going to be a cap space team, and they only have his early bird rights. So, you know, the market is going to determine ultimately whether Isaiah Hartenstein remains a Knick or not. Is all defense a possibility? Realistically, no. Because here's the thing. Let's say the Knicks have a top 5 defense from here on out, right? OG is going to get that credit. I know defensive EPM says Hartenstein's like the best defender in the league or the best center defender in the league, whatever it is. OG is going to get that credit. And, like, to some extent, like, that's not wrong. Like, Hartenstein was here for 20 games, like, after Mitch went down, and over that time, they were the worst defense in the league. So it's tough to get a guy in the all defense and with exceptions. I'm sure somebody could go find someone that made an all defense team that spearheaded a defense was like the worst defense in the league for a 20-day span. But like the Knicks were the worst defense in the league for a solid 2-3 weeks with Hartenstein in the middle. Again, it wasn't his fault, but like to be an all defense team inclusion on the all defense team. There you go. Like 10 best defenders in the league, you know? So it's tough. He's been awesome though. Thanks, Hush. Do business. Brogdon is overrated. Let Deuce and Grimes cook. I have no issue with that. I mean, look, this team should be in no rush to make a trade. No rush. And I don't think they will be. I don't think the market is developing that way. So, yeah. Thanks, do business. Juanon, can we talk? I was waiting for somebody to bring it up. Can we talk Tibbs extension? Tibbs has proven if he gets his guys, he will win. We will win games. The Spo extension, fingers crossed, opens talks. So this is going to be painful for me to do. And by the way, Josh Hart, classy move by him, shouted out Spo because obviously Spo is his coach, or one of his coaches that they apparently they really got to know each other well over the summer on Team USA. Team USA. Josh Hart tweeted out that Spo got the much deserved bag. So I believe, is it 8 years, 120 million, whatever it is? Woj had it that it's the largest dollar amount, not most annual figures, but the largest total dollar amount ever given to a head coach, maybe in any professional sport. I'm not sure, but at the very least in basketball. Spo is the best coach in the league, and he is, I would argue, so vastly the best coach in the league. Like, maybe not far and away. Dagnall's kind of getting up there pretty quick. But he's the best coach in basketball. And he's probably been the best coach in basketball for some time now. And so, like, he's kind of in his own category, really. That said, and I don't want to say too much because I got a piece coming out. I think tonight? Oh, man. Hold on. I'm going to do some quick research here. I hope nobody minds. Because I believe tonight was Yep. Tonight was Tom Thibodeau's 499th coaching win. So in Dallas, in Jalen Brunson's return game on Thursday, at a place where if it wasn't for something that had literally never happened before in NBA history, Tibbs would have got his 500th coaching win tonight. I will never forget that game in Dallas last season. So he's going to get 500 wins pretty soon. That's a track record. And look, the criticism about him is always going to be there. The people who are strong critics of him, it doesn't, like, he could win 60 games this year and they would find things to criticize him about. And he could win an NBA championship. And there are going to be fans that will never, and I mean this, that will never forgive him for not playing Emmanuel Quickly more. There's probably still people mad at him for not playing Obi more. People not mad at him for not playing Cam Reddish more, Like, you're always going to have a subset. And it is because of the way he goes about his business. And, like, it's not arrogance. It's kind of arrogance, which is why I love him. But one of them, so many reasons why I love him. I'm sure this is exactly what people want to tune in for, right? Me gushing about Tibbs. It's going to make the viewership go way up. I'll finish up. But, like, just the way his demeanor, the way he goes about his business, the cut of his jib, like, that will always send people off the deep end when it comes to him and thinking about his process and thinking about, like, his ceiling as a coach. So, all that being said, I've been here since the 90s. And I think you have too, and a lot of people have. And give as much credit to Leon as Tibbs, because it really was as much Leon as Tibbs, and the players obviously too. But I've said this before. My buddy Bernardo Zarowski had a saying before this regime took over, which is that the rot is in the walls, and the implication was that you could hire anybody the fuck you want to run this franchise and to coach this franchise. It's not going to matter. The rot is in the walls. Nothing will work here to turn this thing around. And I believed it at a certain point because, like, I don't have to explain why I believed it. So, just to watch Hall of Famer after Hall of Famer after Hall of Famer come here and coach their way into a job and then out of a job, And then for him to come in here and do what he's done, I don't know. Seems pretty open and shut to me. But what do I know? Thanks, Junon. Appreciate you teaming me up on that one. Hush Zoo, Dante DiVincenzo along with Brunson, two of the best contracts. Is DiVincenzo one of the best contracts in the league? I mean, it's not a contract to the level of like. Here's the thing: are there any value contracts in the league anymore? Right? Like Mikal Bridges, I was just thinking Mikal Bridges makes like $19 million a year, whatever it is, $20 million. That's almost seen as a detriment because you're not going to be able to extend him on using the extension rules because he's going to want a max and he's earned probably a max and he's a threat to leave. So like, there's hardly any such thing as a value contract anymore. That said, exceptional signing at the full mid level. Like value contract, he has more than earned his money, and you would not have any problem moving him as like a good contract. If you ever have to move it, it's going to be easy to move it. That dude could play 20 minutes a night on any team in the league. It's the best compliment you give him. And Brunson, that speaks for itself. I don't need to play up Brunson's contract. Thanks, Hush. Joseph Brennan with another one. Thank you again, Joseph. Also, I'm 41. This has to be the most shooting talent on a Knicks team in my lifetime. Brunson, OG, Grimes, DiVincenzo, all elite. Unbelievably refreshing. So do a quick stats check-in. Let's actually do a quick advanced stats check-in because we always do this. So net rating, the Knicks are up to 8th at plus 4.2. A hair behind the Pelicans. It's incredible to me that the Pelicans have that net rating and have seemingly had so many devastating losses this year. But they have the same record as us, essentially the same net rating. 9th in offense. I'm actually shocked that the Knicks are still that low in offense. They're just ahead of the Mavs. Mavs are 10th. But there's like a group of 5 teams. Like the Knicks could, if they have another good week on offense, they could be 6th in offense easily. Defense is the key. They're up to 14th, and they were down in the low teens for a while. So the Knicks are up to 14th, essentially tied with the Heat in 13th. And a stone's throw away, honestly, from like 8th, 9th range. So they're moving on up. Anyway, the reason I wanted to do a stats check is to look at their 3-point percentage. So as of right now, the Knicks, in terms of 3-point percentage, are 8th in the league at 37.8%. I don't think I need to look this up. I believe the last time they were this high in terms of 3-point accuracy was during the 2012-13 season, which I have just looked up. During the 2012-13 season, they were 5th in 3-point accuracy. So I think, I don't know about your lifetime, because you were alive a decade ago. Did that 2012-13 team have more shooting talent than this Knicks team? I would say no, because shooting itself has grown by leaps and bounds. So honestly, the team with like the 20th best shooting talent in the league this year would have been probably like in the conversation for top 5 like a decade ago. That's how much better the shooting has got in the league. So how about instead of shooting talent, we talk about relative shooting talent? And in terms of relative shooting talent, going back to that 2012-13 team, you had Carmelo, who was dynamite from 3 that year, shot 38%. J.R. Smith, I mean, the degree of difficulty, like he was elite. Kid was good. Novak was your guy. I mean, Novak is like one of the greatest shooters in the history of the Knicks. Just automatic. And then I forgot. Shump hit 40% from deep that year. Limited volume, very limited volume, even for them. It was under 3 threes a game. You had Prigioni, you had Copeland. The thing is, that team was special because you had basically any lineup they put on the floor would have 4 shooters on it, which was revolutionary for that time. Like it was literally revolutionary. Nobody had done that. That's why the Melo with the 4 thing was so big. But even at all the other spots, like your weakest shooter in terms of your regulars was, I mean, was it Kid? I guess it was Kid at like 35%, right? Yeah. Unless you want to throw Wallace in there, who played early on. Yeah, so I don't know. And then if you want to throw Stoudemire, who played 29 games, obviously, and I guess Ronnie Brewer. So they had like some weak spots, but this team, in terms of when they put on the floor, you mentioned Brunson, DiVincenzo, Anunoby. Those guys really are all elite in certain aspects of shooting. And then you go to Grimes, pretty close to elite. But then after that, it's like, who's the next best shooter after that from 3? You got Randle, you got Hart, and you got now Deuce. I'm actually going to say the 12th. I've droned way too long on this. I'm going to go ahead and say the 12-13 team has more relative shooting talent than this team. Even though the best shooters on this team are certainly better than the best outside shooters on that team. But again, it's so tough to compare because the league is just a different league. So it's an interesting conversation, and one that I'll bring up at some point again, because that's a good thought process thing. Thanks, Joseph. Appreciate you. Jeremy Chase, what's going on, Jeremy? How you been, man? My 75-year-old lifelong Knicks fan dad texted me. OG reminds him, I've had a few old heads say this. DeBusschere. Not the first to make the comparison, yeah, but that's not nothing from him. I mean, that's huge. If someone was around and saw Dave DeBusschere and they're throwing around Dave DeBusschere's name, I mean, I know some people made the comparison after the Josh Hart trade, not in terms of the player, but in terms of the impact. OG's not Dave. Look, Dave DeBusschere, for any younger fans listening who may not know, here's all you need to know about Dave DeBusschere. Dave DeBusschere made one All-NBA team in his life. Only one. The season he got traded to the Knicks. He was included as one of the top 75 all-time players on the list that they did 2 years ago. There was not a single person that I saw, at least, who remotely quibbled with his inclusion. That is because, and again, I obviously never saw him play, but from everything I've read and from all the people I've talked to who watched him play, there was an ethereal quality about him and his impact on the game and his impact on his team. And like, just look at what happened to the franchise after he left, if you don't believe me. But that was just, it could not be quantified. And on top of that, he made literally every first team all defense that he could make, because they started doing the thing when he was like in the middle of his career. They started doing all defense teams. He made first team every year. And I think he got the highest percentage of votes a couple of those years, maybe 2 or 3 of those. So like, you could argue that if the award had existed back then, he would have won 2 or 3 Defensive Player of the Year awards. But what was I saying? So all this is to say, OG Anunoby is not Dave DeBusschere, but man, he's special. Because again, I call myself early when I would refer to him and write about him, to say like that the Knicks got in like an OG Anunoby type, or the Knicks sought an OG Anunoby type, is disingenuous, because there's nobody else in the league like him. Nobody who has his specific combination of defensive versatility, defensive ceiling, and then the shooting piece, and then some of the other stuff he does on offense too. Thanks, Jeremy. Give your dad a shout out for me if you don't mind. As the Mavs continue to get blown out. Jesus Christ. Jewing on with another one. Side note, thoughts on the recruitment lunch with Brogdon and the Prophet. Robert Randolph claims he had lunch with his source and Brogdon on X. I believe him. I didn't want to say this. I was at the lunch. And it was going swimmingly until Robert Randolph, he ordered mozzarella sticks, and he spilled some marinara sauce on his shirt. And Brogdon said, "That's it. I'm out." And he just got up and left the table. No, shout out to Robert Randolph. He's a lot of fun. I have no idea if has it. Is he? I feel funny saying this because, like, for all we know, he's always been in on the joke. But, like, is he fully in on the joke now? Here's the thing about Robert Randolph, and Yaron Weissman retweeted the piece today. A great piece, very, very fun, enjoyable piece. Go check out Yaron Weissman on Twitter and read the piece on Robert Randolph that he wrote last year about how he has, all, obviously all these tweets saying this, he knows about this deal and that deal and whatever. Like, reading that piece, he does not strike me as someone who was in on the joke a year ago when he was interviewed for that piece. Has that changed? I don't know. I really love to get Robert on the pod. Robert, if you're listening, come on, join us, please. Thanks, Juna. Dimitri. Hope I got that. Hi, is it me or does it seem like the Precious Achiuwa leaves a lot to be desired? I had slightly better expectations for him as the backup in the backup 4 role. Well, he was never going to be the backup 4. He's going to be the backup 5. Not a guy who does the things that Tibbs wants his centers to do. He has a skill set. It's a very real skill set. Look at where he got drafted. And like people who watch Toronto a lot more than I have over the years can talk about this a lot more intelligently than I can. Like, he flashes skills sometimes, but I don't think he does enough of what Tibbs requires. Like, the most unenviable thing in the world is to be a Thibodeau center. And you have to have full buy-in, and you have to love the grunt work, and you have to be a guy who has like a certain type of personality. And I don't know any of those things about Precious. And it's not that here. That came off the wrong way. I have no idea whether Precious is like down for grunt work or any of that stuff. But like, you also need to have a particular skill set and, frankly, a particular frame. Like, Achiuwa's 6'8", and he doesn't really necessarily, or 6'9", whatever he is. He doesn't necessarily play bigger than that. So that right there is a limitation. Like, we've seen him attempt some threes. He hit the 3 against Philadelphia, right? That was cool. I don't know. It's for me, it's more the fit than the player. And Benji and TJ have talked about this last night. I agree with them. Thanks, Dimitri. Armand Birdnage. I hope I got that right. OG has been great, but he needs some one-on-one pick and roll training from Drew. Oh, one-on-one PR training from Drew. Not Andrew Claudio. Also, Evil Dante signing. It's so funny because you would think the natural inclination is to grab the mic, and yet nobody does it. He's the first person I can remember grabbing the mic in a post-game interview. Maybe he's just not that comfortable. I don't know. We'll get Drew on that for sure. And also Evil Dante. Yeah. Here's what I'm going to do. I am going to set the over-under, and this, I don't know why I jumped right to this. But the Flynn, some people thought he might get time when he came here. It's very clear that like Deuce has the job, and if Deuce doesn't have the job, it's because they trade for someone else. So like Malachi Flynn, barring something crazy, is not going to be playing basketball here. Moving forward, I'll set the over-under at 1.5, or sorry, 0.5, 0.5 of how many of Precious Achiuwa and Malachi Flynn are still on the team after the All-Star break. Because, again, Flynn, his salary could come in handy, and Achiuwa, his salary could come in handy to make the math work on some other deals. So, yeah. Thanks, Armand. Stevens, Big Yame, what's going on, man? 5 of them, thanks, John. Yeah, I know what you're referring to. OG... It's great. I mean, the dude scored, what he scored, 13 straight points for the Knicks, or 11 straight points in the first quarter? And he scored 11 straight and 16 total in the first quarter. Yeah, that dog will hunt for sure. I see Benji just had a tweet about quickly playing well. Hasn't taken a shot at this point, hasn't held the ball, just table setting early, lots of mouths to feed in this Toronto starting lineup. And then when it's time to attack, pump and get to the floater game. So, yep, there you go. He's going to be so good. The question about quickly is like by the end of this year, do people consider him like a top 20 starting point guard? Do people consider him does he get in the conversation for like a top 15 starting point guard? I think that's going to be the conversation by the end of this year. That's the range that I would assume. 15, 20 like that. And I can finally put on this game because the Memphis Grizzlies have completed their blowout of the Dallas Mavs. I don't necessarily love that the Mavs are going to be coming off a blowout going into the game on Thursday, but whatever. Beggars can't be choosers. Kevin Danishevsky, thank you again for the generous contribution, Kev. I actually think Brogdon is perfect for Deuce. We are effed without JB right now. But next year, if you trade Brogdon for matching salary in a star trade, you could bring over Rokas and Deuce could have a real shot to win the job. One thing at a time. So this is kind of what I was referring to, right? If you bring in, let's say you bring in Brogdon, you're going to put Brogdon on the weakest offensive player on the other team. Is Brogdon a bad defender? No, he's not a bad defender. But, like, he's fine, right? He's okay. And he plays to his size. If you put him on the weakest defender, and then you put Deuce on the next smallest defender, right? But the more threatening one. And then you would get Grimes and Hart and see, but that lineup is interesting. Like, I wonder if they got I genuinely wonder this. If they got Brogdon, would Tips think about playing OG as backup 5? Like, we always focus on Randle at the backup 5. What about OG at the backup 5? With Hart at the backup 4, which I know he does not love. He's made that very clear. And then Grimes at the 3, Deuce at the 2, Brogdon at the 1. I don't know. I'll say this. If Deuce keeps playing like this and they trade for Brogdon and Deuce goes back on the bench, that's going to be a tough sell, man. That's going to be a tough sell. That's the other part of this. The more Deuce plays and the longer he plays well and hits shots, it's going to be a tough sell. And it's one thing if it's like when like Josh Hart came in and like relegated Deuce to the bench, that was easy. That was an easy sell because Josh Hart comes in and he lights the court on fire with his style of play. Like Brogdon's not, I don't know if Brogdon's like going to be that. Like if you bring in someone to relegate Deuce to the bench, they better be freaking good, which then goes to a different conversation of like, all right, if they're freaking good, might you have to give up more in a trade? Like, do you have to give up Grimes in a trade? But then you go to the conversation of like, all right, well, if you're giving up Grimes, then they got to be really, 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 really good. I don't want to go down that road. The team's playing too well to start talking about trading anybody on the current rotation. So let's move on. Thanks, Kev. Busy. What's going on, Busy? Shout out to the KFS PR team. I like the PC version of John. Do you really? Do you like any version of me? Busy? That's the question I have. No, Busy. You're one of the good ones, Biz. Thank you. Good job this year minimizing calling people dumb for their super chats. It'll come back at some point, I promise. Seriously, though, good job. Keep up the good work. Listen, I never promised I was good, but I do my best. That's it. You're the man, dude. Thanks. You know who 97. I don't know who, but okay, we'll go with it. Not to be hyperbolic, but I guess you're going to be hyperbolic. I really struggle to think of a stretch where they've played this well, been this dominant since the Ewing era. Am I wrong? Well, the competition factors in. The 9. I just want to look and see real quick who the 9 straight wins came against last year. So those 9 straight wins came against Utah home, Brooklyn, the shell of Brooklyn home, at Atlanta, at Washington, That was after the All-Star break. My God, they looked good in that game. I remember that game. The New Orleans game after the All-Star break. That was the game. I think they were honoring the 73 team that night where they played well that night. My Lord. And then the first Boston win, which was awesome. Another Brooklyn game. Then the Julius miracle at Miami. and then the IQ 38 points in 55 minutes at Boston. They are playing right now than a high. They look to me right now to be a higher ceiling team than they did during that stretch. So then you got to go back to 2012-13, which is really the only other team that's in competition for this. Since you're saying Ewing era, so it's basically, is this team, did the 2012-13 team ever look more dominant than this team? I mean, that team started out 6-0, and they started out more. They were really good, and then they were like a 500 team for like half the year, and then they finished really strong. I don't know. Did they ever look this dominant? I don't know if they ever. I would have to really go back and think. I mean, we're talking about 5 games. You're telling me the 12-13 team never had 5 games where they looked this dominant? I have to think they did at some point. Again, especially considering the competition that the Knicks have played here. Can they make that a real conversation? If they keep this up, yeah. But they got a little bit of ways to go. Thanks, you know who, 97. Nelson Joseph, what's going on, Nelson? Knicks will be a top 5 ranked defense by year end. Can we say that they'll be top 5 from the date of the OG trade until the end? Because to be a top 5 ranked defense, like in the year end rankings, might mean they might have to be like the number 1 or number 2 ranked defense in the league starting from the OG trade to the end of the year. That's a tall ask. I understand they're the best ranked defense in the league over the last 5 games. It's a tall ask. That's a tall ask. So I'll give you a top 5 from the OG trade to the end of the year. I think that's possible. And I definitely think they should get into the top 10 by the end of the year. And hey, top 10 defense, top 10 offense. That, you know what they say. Thanks, Nelson. Busy with another one. Thank you, Busy. You're too much, man. Seriously. Same guys in the Knicks community who hated the idea of trading for Zion due to injury concerns are now willing to pull the trigger on a role player with the same concerns. Well, look, in fairness, the cost is very different. If you trade for Zion, you're trading whatever you need to get Zion. That's insane because it's going to be a crazy cost. Well, no, I shouldn't say it's insane. Maybe it's not insane. Whatever. That's that. But like it's all relative, right? If you're trading again the Bucks pick and Fournier and Malachi Flynn for Brogdon, then that's like, you know, and again you're not investing. You're not putting your all of your franchises like hopes and dreams on one guy staying healthy, because you're doing that if you trade for Zion. If you trade for Malcolm Brogdon and he gets injured the day after you trade for him and never plays a game for you, it's like, all right, it's a bad trade. It's not killing anything you're doing long term. So that's the only pushback I would give there. But I appreciate the sentiment. Thank you, Busy. Also, who cares what people in the Knicks community say? Tingus Pingus, do you think Brunson Randle with an amazing supporting cast is enough to vault the Knicks into championship contention? What do you do about backup center? I still kind of like my Plumlee idea. He's not playing in LA right now. They don't need him. He's just kind of sitting around. If he's healthy, wouldn't cost much. Get him for a second-round pick, probably. I think Drummond would. I know people hate the name. It just it sends shockwaves up your spine. I think Drummond would fit in perfectly fine with what this team would need him to do. Okay, because, and there are. I think there was some of it going around in. I think maybe DJ had this on Twitter today. I see so many things because I like dip into things here and there. Maybe it was in our faculty chat, whatever. I want to give credit to DJ. Like Drummond has had, I think, a legitimately pretty good defensive year. There's some stat he's doing very well in. Maybe like whatever. I don't want to say something out of turn. And he's a huge body, again, size, and he could kill you. He's great on the glass on both ends. That's what the Knicks care about. So, like, I think that makes a lot of sense. Now, in terms of Brunson, Randle, amazing supporting cast, enough to vault the Knicks into championship contention. Man, it's a question that's dominated every conversation for a while. I don't want to rule anything out with how good they've looked. I still feel like they're so let's say you're saying no star trade, right? No superstar trade. Still feel like they're a big piece away. A significant piece away. Because you get into these playoff series with teams like Boston and you go up against a Milwaukee if like Dame's on a heater and Giannis is like tearing up the court and you just feel so overwhelmed. It just takes so much to combat that. And I think they got the outline, though. I think they got the outline. I would love to add to it. But they got the outline. This is the outline. I think this outline works. Thanks, Tingus Pingus. Great name, by the way. Rich McLeod, what's going on, Rich? How you doing, bud? What's up, my guy? The ball movement and spacing is so new and fun. Yes, it is. The vibes on par with last year's run and the win streak from the We Here season. Something special. Yeah, the win streak from the We Here season is one that, like, that was night after night. It was like, is this really happening? Is this really happening? Is this really happening? Because they were like a 500 team before that. So that maybe more than anything is the most incredible part of the Leon / Tibbs era is they have had 3 seasons out of 4 where you've gone through a stretch where you're like, oh my God, this is the best I felt as a Knicks fan in 20 years. Last year, oh my God, it's the best I felt as a Knicks fan in 20 or whatever, a decade. The We Here season is the best I felt as a Knicks fan in a decade. Like, they've given us now 3 of those. That ain't nothing, especially when you spent so much of the last 20 years feeling freaking miserable. And to the passing point, Knicks last 5 games, 16th in assist rate, which for them is like incredible. Thanks, Rich. Appreciate you, man. Good to hear from you. Alan Abrams, not a surprise because rookie year Deuce was cooking folks in the G League. Just needed opportunity and the confidence that comes with playing time. Yeah, I mean, and also you got to get better. I know he was cooking folks in the G League, but like a lot of guys cook folks in the G League. I never want to put too much into G League stats. That said, I thought he did enough last year to keep the ship afloat. This is a better version. Step by step by step. That's what I mean. 35th pick in the draft, right? Or whatever he was, 36th, 37th, whatever he was in that range. Like, can you be an NBA rotation player by year 3? He looks like an NBA rotation player right now. It's all you want. It's all you want. Thank you, Alan. As I'm looking at RJ, was it N1 or getting to the line? Busy. Remember the line, staying healthy is a skill. Guess how many games Murray played last year? We praise our own players for playing every night, but Murray wouldn't be a good fit. The last Murray rant. Look, I don't think you're crazy with the DeJounte Murray thing. I want to be very clear about that. I think it is a situation where, and I think I wrote this in the newsletter that I did on him last week. There are reasons to think that Murray on this team would be a good move. I think there are reasons to think that a Murray on this team would not be a good move. Honestly, my biggest hesitation, I think, is I just love the way the starting lineup is playing. And DiVincenzo, his ability to relocate and move around so much without the ball and shoot these shots from distance and at the drop of a hat, like instantaneously firing away with really seemingly very little space on a lot of these shots. That is so important. And for him to have that and be a connector, right? To reintroduce that term, which we talked about on the KFS halftime Zoom and many others have talked about. Connector, right? He's a connector. Obviously, Anunoby is something of a connector. Josh Hart's the classic connector. But like Murray introduces another guy into the starting five that's not what you're paying him for. So yeah, I don't know. It's tough. But you brought up the point to me, and DJ Zulo brought up the point, I think, on Twitter today. Brunson as a off-ball guy, catch and shoot guy, he's become one of the as great as he is pulling up. He's become one of the best off-ball threats in the league in terms of being a pull-up shooter, or excuse me, being a catch and shoot guy. So, you give Murray maybe a little more of that responsibility in the starting lineup, and then like Brunson becomes your DiVincenzo, kind of. Is that weird to say? I'm not saying that's why. It's not saying there's a path that it couldn't work. I don't know. I have my hesitations. I have my doubts. Thanks, Busy. OG team. For someone who claimed a defensive liability, it's rare we ever talk about how bad Brunson is defensively. It's a great sign. Well, again, I said it earlier. It's masked more now. There are teams that have exploited him. There will be more teams that exploit him. It is all about how they deal with that. And honestly, it's going to be about Brunson being his best version of himself. Fighting hard, which is tough, right? Because when teams put him through the ringer and then he's going to have to come back on the other end and do a lot on offense, which actually, that's another reason to like the idea of either a Murray trade or just any trade for another real serious shot creator, ball handler, whatever, because if in the playoffs teams are getting Brunson involved in actions and really putting him through it, to ask him to fight through all that and on top of that be your engine for 40 minutes and take you home in close games, that's a lot to ask. That's a lot to ask. So yeah, I don't know. I know I went down a road that you were not really bringing up, but no, but he's I think on the whole he's been better this year for sure than last year. Thanks, OG team. Sam L. If they continue to play as greater than the sum of their parts with hustle, headiness, and togetherness, they can contend right now. And we got assets. Well, that's the exciting part, right? Can they contend right now? Can they not contend right now? That's almost gravy this season. Next year, like, look, at this, with how they're playing, all of us sitting here right now, I think most of us expect them to get to the second round, right? Which is fine. If they get there and they peter out against a better team, it happens. This summer, there's going to be pressure on them to use those assets. And I would be shocked if they did not. But you might be right, man. I hope you are, Sam. Thanks as always. Appreciate you. OG team, when is the final day to use Evans' expiring contract? There is no impetus to have to use it by the trade deadline because they have his team option for next year. So, and Jeremy has talked about this. Let's say you can't swing a deal involving Fournier by the trade deadline, and you're coming up and it's draft night, and you get a sense that there's a deal there for you, but maybe you can't complete it on draft night. Maybe you have to wait until after the new league year starts, July 2nd, July 3rd, July 4th. You can fully guarantee Evan Fournier's team option for the following year. And then pick up the team option and then use him in a trade. I doubt he'd agree to this, but there's also always the possibility of pushing back the guarantee date. I don't think he would do that. And then the only danger zone is, well, what if it's July or June 28th or 29th or something, and you feel like, we might have a deal lined up, but I'm not sure. But we're not sure. Do you guarantee the contract then? So for that reason, for that exact reason I just said, which is that possibility of genuine uncertainty, where the Knicks could be looking around a day or two before free agency starts and like trade season really kicks. Like a lot of trades are made after free agency because you get guys coming off books and it's easier to do 2-for-1 or 3-for-1 or 4-for-1 trades, whatever it is. Because that uncertainty exists and because the Knicks front office knows that uncertainty exists, I am quite certain that they will have a little bit of extra incentive to try to flip Fournier's contract into something that they feel better about heading into next year, which is why we come back to Malcolm Brogdon. Is Malcolm Brogdon perfect? No. Is he injury prone? Yes. Might he, take away minutes from somebody that we want to play more minutes? Yes. But he is a proven NBA commodity, and he has $22 million guaranteed for next season. So in that respect, and it doesn't have to be Brogdon. There are other guys who qualify for this. I think Brogdon's the most obvious one. So that's why I think that they will continue to look to get someone that kind of, takes away some of that uncertainty before the trade deadline. Thanks, OG team. Kevin Danishevsky. Knicks inching closer towards a hashtag 53 win pace. Hashtag Thanos. What is a 53? I guess we're not there yet, but we're almost there, right? We'll get there. We'll get to the 53 win pace. I'm confident. At some point, we'll be on that pace. Thanks, Kev. Alex, all love and support to Mitch. Get well, 23. Let's not forget about Mitch, man. That dude was awesome for us this year. I know it's great right now. The thing that I was perhaps most excited about is the conversation that DJ and Benji had last night about, like, if Mitch came back this year, or even, I guess, for argument's sake, next year, but let's just say this year for what it's worth. Like, do you hand him the starting job? And I think they both kind of came to the conclusion that, like, you can't, if Hardenstein keeps playing this way and is able to hold up with these minutes, I don't think you could do that. And the prospect of, like, Mitch coming off the bench and playing 15, 20 minutes a game and wreaking havoc during that time, that's kind of exciting, But so, yeah, get well soon, man. And he already got paid, so, like, that wouldn't be the end of the world for him. I don't think. Alex with another one. Rather than trading for a backup point guard, how about a facilitating backup 5, Olynyk? Run the offense through Kelly Olynyk, Deuce, Grimes, Hart, Randle, Kelly Olynyk, hashtag G League Fairy. So, not the guy they usually go for. Not the sort of guy, not the sort of center that does the things that a Thibodeau center usually does. However, unlike Achua, there's a real genuine offensive ceiling there with Olynyk that might make the trade-off worth it. I was kind of stalling because, so $12.1 million expiring salary. So you're talking about can you build? Yeah, I don't know if you're going to be able to build. I think you're going to be talking about Utah sending something additional with him. And then Fournier, but that's an issue because then you're trading Fournier for expiring contract, which Jeremy did a whole thing on. I don't need to go over again. But Besides the fact they don't have really any other great salary to pair with Olynyk. Yeah, I'd be surprised. Let's just say I'd be surprised if they went that route, especially dealing with Utah. So, not a crazy thing though at all, Alex. Not a crazy thing. I'm not sure how the money works on a deal. Thank you. Oh, with another one. Tired. This is also Alex. Tired. Winning streaks start after trades. Wired. Winning streaks. Then Deuce enters the lineup. Hashtag winning rejoice. Amen to that. I love it. You're the man, Alex. And then Mythic Monty. Hi, John. Is there a chance the Knicks tack on the extra year of Fournier's contract and use it as trade this summer or next season instead? Again, you read my mind. Talked about it already. Definitely a chance. The most interesting thing in the world to me would be is if they came up to the deadline to guarantee the contract and they did not have a deal in place. I don't want to say we're not confident that they could make a deal, but specifically did not have a deal in place. Because at that point, if on the doomsday scenario that you don't make a deal and you guarantee Fournier's contract, you've certainly put yourself into the luxury tax. And then you're looking at all right, well, we could get out of the luxury tax, but then we got to pay probably somebody something to dump Fournier's contract. Although even then, you never know what stuff is going to materialize during the year. Again, I'm talking about next season now. So, look, I think they're gonna find a trade before the deadline. I'd be surprised if they didn't. If they don't, I'd be surprised if either Fournier wasn't on the team past July 1st or they didn't use his contract in a trade past July 1st. I guess it's a very long-winded way of saying I would be very surprised if A, Fournier was still on the roster come his guarantee date, and then B, they declined his team option. I'd be really surprised. That would mean that something has gone wrong if that scenario unfolded and that things did not go according to plan. Thanks, Mythic Monty. MK21, thoughts on bringing in Marcus Smart as a backup point guard? Funny you ask. I just wrote a segment for Thursday's newsletter on that exact question. Short answer, I don't know that I love the fit. With the caveat that, Smart plus Hart plus Grimes plus Anunoby plus maybe a slightly better defensive center. I mean, shit. You want to talk about a backup lineup that you really do feel confident? Yeah, we'll throw them out there for 6 minutes in a playoff game and feel pretty good about the fact that the other team just isn't going to score. Or hell, maybe it's in that scenario, it would not be Grimes. It would be Grimes. It would be Deuce and Smart because you're almost certainly giving up Grimes in that trade. So do you want to give up Grimes? I don't know about that. But even Deuce, Smart, Hart, OG, pick a decent backup center defensively. That's frightening. That's a frightening defensive lineup. I don't know. I'm skewing no. Don't know that I want to give up Grimes for Smart. Plus, you're going to give up picks too. But it's not crazy at all. It's not crazy. Thanks, MK21. Christopher Hallecky. I have watched the Ewing Knicks and the Anthony Knicks. This is by far the most exciting Knicks team I have seen. Christopher, great way to end it. If anybody watching right now feels that way, you're totally justified. You're totally justified because, I was young during the Ewing Knicks days, and I certainly was not there for the real peak. To me, 92, 93, 93, 94, I obviously I remembered 93, 94. Remember 92, 93 a little bit. Those were the best teams. They were genuine contenders. 93, 94 to me will always be the best Knicks team I've seen until they win a championship. So I can't go quite that far. But like, if you want to put this team ahead of some of those like late 90s teams, that's fine. I'm not going to begrudge you that. Thanks, Christopher. And thank you, everybody, for watching another post-game live stream on the Knicks Film School YouTube channel. As a reminder, if you are not yet subscribed to this channel, please do so. Also, like the video. All you have to do is you got to click on the little thumbs up button there. Don't slam it. We haven't done that bit in a while. Don't slam the thumbs up button. Gently caress it. And then also, if you're listening to this in the podcast form tomorrow, got a lovely review I saw came via Chartable email the other day. Thank you to whoever wrote that. Thanks to everybody who writes reviews. Thanks to everybody who leaves us 5-star ratings. Thanks to just everybody who supports the show, supports the Knicks Film School, supports the pregame pods, the Benji and DJ X's and O's, cap or no cap, all the stuff that we do. Casual Fridays, obviously, they always kill it. They always bring a different energy and a different kind of take on the conversation, which is why I love them so much. Everything we're doing here, we do not do without your support and love, and we thank you. So great win. Vibes are great right now. And I will see you on a pod with Fred Katz that will be dropping midnight tomorrow, or I guess midnight Wednesday going into Thursday, I think, or whatever, early Thursday morning. And so you'll hear from me then, and then post-game Thursday and the whole thing. Talk to you soon. All the best. Peace out.